What is going on, everybody? We are taking a look at a certified competitive EDH deck. Let's go. What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Roxora, and here we do all things Match the Gathering. Today we are doing another Commander deck tech where I take a look at a Commander deck, talk about the Commander, the individual card choices, the overall strategy as a whole. At the end, I'll give it a rating out of 10. Today's submission comes from Professor Amateur, but is actually designed by this guy. Ira Rule, I believe is what his username is pronounced as. But this comes from the cEDH decklist database, which I'll link down below if you guys want to check that out. Got a lot of decks on there, built for the cEDH metagame, so it'll be interesting to take a look at how the deck is composed and the kind of the card inclusions if you're planning for a more competitive environment as opposed to a more casual one. But all right, let's take a look at the commander and see what we're working with. All right, so here is our commander. We've got Magda, Brazen Outlaw. It is 1 in a red for a 2/1 legendary creature, Dwarf Berserker. And it gives other dwarfs +1/+0. It's got a little bit of a dwarf tribal kind of thing going on, sort of, not really. Um, but it says whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, you make a treasure token. And you can sacrifice 5 treasures to search your library for an artifact or a dragon, put it directly onto the battlefield. So you can already kind of see where the power of this card is going to come from. All about making treasures and putting some stuff onto the battlefield. And yeah, I think, I think something that this deck has, this card has seen a lot of usage is in standard, with the elf that like taps it, so you make mana, then you make treasure, and we're kind of doing something similar in this deck. So let's take a look. All right, so here is the deck. We've got Magda, as you said. There is also a deck primer, by the way. I could go through this. We'll talk about some things. I mean, I talk about this is a combo deck, obviously. One of the combos is this card, Clock of Omens. And basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a artifact that is a dwarf. So in this case, they're using Universal Automaton, Magda, and Clock of Omens. And this will essentially make infinite tapped treasures, and then you can use it to get Academy Manufacturer, which will get you infinite mana. And so then all of these things, and you can kind of go off from there. There's additional combos with Cursed Mirror, Cloudstone Curio, and things like that, which I'm not really going to go over. These are some more complicated stuff, but just kind of, the general combo of Clock of Omens is kind of good enough to talk about this deck just in a general sense. So first let's talk about, we've got one Planeswalker here, just Incarnate Great Creator. It is kind of odd because you can't use this -2, I believe. We've got some artifacts over here, but in this sideboard, but I don't think this is an actual real thing. I think it's just some cards maybe the creator was interpreting, because I believe that's the case with Commander. I mean, maybe if you had house rules or something, but mostly it's here just to shut down artifacts of your opposing players. I'm not sure if this +1 does much. Maybe there's some things where you could like make an artifact creature or something like that. Maybe if you have something that like makes all of your stuff into dwarves. I don't remember if I've seen that. I don't think that's in this deck. But what we do have in our creature slot here is a decent amount of dwarves, cheap dwarves, as well as just some really solid artifact enabling cards. So we already talked about Academy Manufacturer. But we've got Adaptive Automaton, which becomes a dwarf and gives dwarf +1/+1. We've got some 1-cost dwarves, which I'm not even going to go over this card's ability. I don't like it. It doesn't even matter. It's the point is that you play this on turn 1, you play Magda on turn 2, you attack with a dwarf, and you make a treasure and you ramp. That's really that's the entire purpose of the card. I also believe whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, yeah. So this triggers for each dwarf. So if you get like this, and then you play Magda on 2, like, and you attack, you generate a treasure, and then next turn if you attack with Magda plus whatever dwarf you have, you get you end up having 3 treasures, which is you're already like 3/5 of the way there to activating Magda, which is really strong. So there's more stuff like Bloodline Pretender, which is essentially another automaton. Dockside Extortionist is really powerful in this deck. Obviously, it's a busted card in general, but here, generating all of those treasures, getting Magda and activating it immediately, like that can kind of put you in a very explosive start. So we've got a bunch of dwarves here, dwarf trader. It's literally just a 1/1 with the type dwarf, so it's pretty funny. Then we've got Goblin Engineer and Goblin Welder. These cards, work really well to finding the pieces that you need. Goblin Engineer, putting something in the graveyard, whether it's something like Mana Crypt, Lotus Petal, or even there's another combo piece here in where is it? Where'd you go? Where did you go? Should be here. Mirror of the Forebears. There we go. Which can become a legend, or sorry, a copy of a dwarf, and that is gonna help you with your your combo piece, your Clock of Omens combo. So that can just immediately just send it to the graveyard, sack an artifact, and put it right back onto the battlefield. Same thing with Goblin Welder. Imperial Recruiter is really strong in this deck. Obviously, being able to find Dockside Extortionist, being able to find something like an automaton or a manufacturer, all that is very, very good. So tutors, as we know, are strong. So that's pretty self-explanatory. We've got Metallic Mimic, which is another automaton type that can shapeshift into a dwarf. We've got this machine, which I've never seen this card before, but it's kind of cool. S morph 0. So actually, this is just another automaton, right? Because you play it, you morph it for 3, you flip it up for 0 mana, and then you just you turn it face up and declare dwarf, and it's that type. And then I think at the bottom here we've just got some good cards like Ragavan, Seeming Spirit Guide for some ramp. Got another random dwarf. It's a dwarf wizard. Ooh. And then Universal Automaton, as we've stated. And then I really like Zorn in this deck, just getting to double up on treasures. So like you could go, dwarf into Magda into Zorn, and so that would give you 1 treasure on turn 2, and then turn 3 you would get 4 treasures, right? So you get yeah. Wow, so that's 5 treasures right there. So Zorn is really good in this deck. I've played against this deck, and definitely when they got Zorn, it was pretty scary. Let's look at the instants and sorceries here. We've got Gamble, which is an easy tutor effect sometimes. Gotta use it right, but it's more often than not, it is just a demonic tutor. Or in the cases of like, if you have something like Goblin Welder or Goblin Engineer, it's just a tutor. You tutor for, your mirror or whatever, and you get it anyways, even if you discard it. We've got Jessica's Will, which is just a good card in pretty much every single red deck. And then we've got Last Chance, which is just kind of this desperate time walk effect. If you're winning the next turn, then you can use this as just a time walk effect. Rite of Flame for some ramp. Shadow Skull Smashing is pretty self-explanatory. So is Strike it Rich. Wheel of Fortune, obvious inclusions. These are all pretty self-explanatory, I think. Strike it Rich. Not necessarily the most impressive card, but again, when you've got Magda and you've got Zorn, or something like that, it could be pretty good. Yeah. Instance here we've got a Braid, and just here's our interaction. Notice a lot of instant speed interaction to Braid, Chaos Warp, Deflecting Swat. We've got Final Fortune, which is essentially another copy of Last Chance, but at instant speed, which is interesting. Lightning Bolt, Pyroblast, Pyrokinesis, Red Elemental Blast. I thought a really interesting inclusion here was Stoke the Flames, which can be free with Convoke. So, you could play out your stuff, play your dwarves, play out Magda, and then Stoke the Flames, kill something, and or kill a Planeswalker or something. And then Magda, can make a bunch of treasures, which is pretty cool. We've got Tybalt's Trickery here, which might seem weird, but is essentially just a 2-mana counterspell. More often than not, especially in the scenarios where if you have something like Thassa's Oracle on the stack or Ad Nauseam or some really powerful spell, you just really rather them just anything other than whatever they're casting, Tybalt's Trickery will play the role of a counter spell. Um, you're not really going to want to cast this on yourself a lot because there's nothing like super big to hit and you can miss and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty much there. From how I see it, again, I could be wrong, but that's how I'm interpreting this card in this deck is just a 2-mana counter spell. And then I thought this was interesting is we've got You Find Some Prisoners, which is actually a pretty good cEDH card. Again, a lot of artifacts floating around, so just instant speed, destroy an artifact, or you get to cast one of your opponent's cards off the top of their deck. Right, so until the end of your next turn, even, so you even get to like end step it and then untap and cast it. So like, yeah, this card can be pretty good. I feel like, definitely underrated. Yeah, especially for like an uncommon card, 25-cent card, just stick it in your deck, destroy some artifacts or get a card. So that's kind of cool. I never really thought of this card as like a competitive card, but definitely makes sense. Um, and maybe because Mono Red has some maybe limitations on what it can run. All right, so let's go over to the artifacts here. We've got a ton of artifacts that should be pretty obvious, given what Magda wants to be doing. Actually, before we get to that, relevant, like I mentioned, this card can get dragons. There are no dragons that we're getting. We are just getting artifacts, with this deck. So, all right, so we've got Ashnod's Transmogrant, which puts a +1/+1 counter on a non-creature artifact, and it becomes an artifact creature, though it retains its color. Interesting. So this could be really good if you just have any dwarf out, and then you activate this, and then this can be then whatever creature you make can be the combo for your Clock of Omens combos. So that's actually kind of cool. And then even just putting +1/+1 counters on stuff. You could rebuy it. I'm not sure if there's a lot of rebuy effects in this deck. Maybe not, but still, it's kind of cool. I guess with Goblin Welder, you could do that, but still cool. We've got fast mana here. We've got Chromox. We've got Jeweled Lotus, Liquid Metal Coating, Liquid Metal Torque, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Mox Amber, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal. Let's see, Soul Ring, obviously, Springleaf Drum, which is really strong in this deck. Again, you get to like play Magda out and then tap an untapped creature to make a mana. This is kind of behaves kind of what I was mentioning about in standard, where you had that elf that taps an untapped creature to make a mana. This does the exact same thing. Just you're able to play this in red. So very strong card in my opinion. And then we've got some vehicles as well. We've got Dermotaxi, excuse me. And yeah, Dermotaxi, can become a copy of whatever gets exiled from a graveyard. So that could be a combo piece, or it can just be, a good powerful card. But also just getting to untap creatures, or sorry, to tap untapped creatures and make some treasures is valuable. I thought there was another. Oh yeah, there's also Smuggler's Copter. The Smuggler's Copter is kind of an obvious one of the best vehicles in the game. Even crewing, making a treasure, and then getting to loot with it seems very strong. Getting closer to your combo pieces or just powerful cards in general. So that's a cool one. Let's see. I don't think we've talked about Curse Mirror. This is a good card to copy any creature that become a copy of a dwarf, and that could be valuable. It can also copy Magda and do things. Although no, then it wouldn't be legendary. But I think you could still do that if you wanted it to be an artifact, because I think this right, it's still going to be an artifact. You may have it become a copy of any creature on the battlefield. Look at the primer and see if that's what happens, because I know. Yeah, it looks like Magda using. Oh, so like Curse Mirror is just a way to like um get Mirror the Forebearers or like copy it with Mirror the Forebearers. But still is a useful card to have. Also was it Cursed Mirror and was it Mirror the Forebearers? If you copy Zorn, even though it kind of looks like it or like kind of has this kind of legendary feel to it, is not a legendary creature. So this can be copied. So that's a relevant thing is like if you can do that and then make a ton of treasures, that could be cool. So then we have Cloudstone Curio, which combos with Dockside to make mana. Oh, forgot about this high speed hover bike. This is a new one from Neon Kamigawa or Neon Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. And I really like this card. I liked it in limited. It's 2/2 flying, and then tapping a creature down. When it enters, is may seem like whatever. Um, Although wait, is that just to tap up to one target creature? So that's funny. So I was thinking like, oh, you can use this as like to save yourself from an attack, but actually I'm pretty sure it's just to tap down a dwarf. That is very funny. Um, but still, it has a ton of uses. Like actually, yeah, on the turn if you go turn one dwarf, turn two Magda, you can play the hover bike. Um, tap down a dwarf, then crew it like with the other dwarf, and then you've made two treasures. Yeah, this is kind of funny. Also, you could just crew it twice. Like that's another thing is like so I don't even know if that really matters, but um yeah, this is kind of interesting conclusion. I guess it's like the only one with crew one. Maybe there aren't a lot of other vehicles with low crew costs. We've got Elixir of Immortality here, which loops with some stuff, something. I think it's somewhere. You use something and memory jar or whatnot, and you draw your deck or something. Something like that. Again, like there's this primer you could read through it, but it's like there's so many different combinations of like these combos, which is cool. Do Spectacular, yeah. So like that can do stuff. Is there? I don't think there is. Uh, the what is it? The memory jar. There's no memory jar in this deck, is there? Oh, there is memory jar. Okay, I don't know why I didn't see it before. Yeah, so like memory jar here can be pretty good. So then you use like that, I think, to just like loop through your deck and just like draw lots of cards. So if you draw your deck and then like you cast like lightning bolt or something like that, or stoke the flames or whatever to just deal damage to your opponent. Draw freaking elixir of immortality. Draw your deck again. Keep doing that, and that's how you win. I think that's another way of doing it. Yeah. Speaking of, that's another like Pirate Spellbomb I just saw was another way to do it. Paradise Mantle is an equipment that's again kind of like Springleaf drums. Like you see kind of how these artifacts work. There's the single tangle wire here, which is a good taxing piece. I'm not the biggest fan of these cards, but it's definitely good in the deck. Oh, there's also this spine, which enters and destroys a permanent, and then if it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, it goes back to your hands. So you could sack it, with stuff like Goblin Welder, and that could be pretty cool. Sensei's Dividing Top is an obvious one, so I'm kind of jumping around here. And then Pithing Needle is an obvious one that's been a powerful card in Commander for a while. I think that's really it. Yeah, so kind of what this primer here as well says is that one of the advantages is that you get to use the deck as kind of a toolbox strategy where where is the Soul Guide Lantern? Yeah, so like this guy, they mentioned that like you could use it to grab your interaction pieces, or just like singleton value cards. So like you can grab the Soul Guide Lantern if you're against a graveyard deck, or if you really need to refuel, you can grab the memory jar and things like that. So like Magda allows you to be very flexible, which I think is a really cool notion. Um, Talks about winning at instant speed and all these things. Mentions that a big weakness is collector oof, which is why they have cards like lightning bolt and pyrokinesis and things like that, so that you can easily answer the collector's oof if it's around. So that's important. What else we got? Let's take a look at the lands here. Or sorry, there's 2 enchantments. There is Prophetic Ravings, which gives the creature haste and the ability to tap and loot. This is just a good thing to just slam onto Magda or a dwarf so that you can make treasures and, loot at the same time. And then Blood Moon, of course, because this is a mono red deck. We're not really relying on lands to do much. So we have a bunch of non-basics, but we're fine with those getting turned into mountains and losing all of their abilities. So good with that. So onto the lands here. We got Ancient Tomb. That's a classic one for fast mana. We've got some fetch lands here, which honestly I'm kind of not a big fan of. There is a Barbarian Ring for Threshold, but otherwise there's like not really a lot of purpose to running fetch lands other than deck thinning. I don't know. It probably doesn't matter that much, but we've seen like stuff like the Ashiok, which stops searches and other things like that, take effect. So, but anyways, Blackstone is good interaction. Buried Ruins should be self-explanatory. Like you're an artifact deck. Cavern of Souls is a must-have for this deck. You have dwarfs in your deck, and you also want to make sure that your Magda can't be countered. Emergent Zone is a cool one where you can play at instant speeds. This is kind of what they're talking about, where like you can win at instant speed just by doing that, casting some stuff, and going off from there. We've got Gemstone Cavern, which is necessary for the fast mana. If you could go turn 1 Magda, that's like even better. That's also why like Demon Spirit Guide's really good, by the way. And then we've got 2 copies of, or two like redundant effects of these lands that can only produce colored mana. Excuse me, if you tap an untapped creature. So again, this is that same kind of Spring Leaf Drum effect where you tap a creature, you make a mana, and then Magda makes a treasure. Yeah. And then we've got this Homeward Path, which is kind of odd. I'm not exactly sure what it's doing there. I think it's just there. If there's something like, I don't know, Zedru or something that steals stuff, I'm really not sure exactly what it does, but I'm sure that it is good. I just can't think of anything right now where I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I would want Homeward Path. Mutavault's a really good one. It is a dwarf. It is all creature types, so that one should be a pretty obvious one. Got more fetch lands. We got Shinka, giving a creature first strike, so you can give Magda first strike if you need to attack past a 2 health creature. There's the second copy of that kind of Springleaf Drum land. Treasure Vault. It's an artifact. It's a land. It makes treasures. Should be obvious. Like you activate this and you make some treasures, and that could be the difference between winning or not winning the game. So yeah. And then we've got Ursus Saga here. We've seen this in a ton of decks, and it should be self-explanatory. It can make giant constructs if you've got your treasure stuff going, and then also helps you find your 0 and 1 mana artifacts, whether that's something like Mana Crypt, or a Paradise Mantle or something like that, or even Soul Ring. Why not? So yeah, those are all the cards in the deck. We can kind of talk about the strategies again. Like the goal is like turn one dwarf. That's why there are so many in the deck, because you always have access to Magda on turn 2, and then from there make treasures, and then you're trying to assemble an artifact creature that is also a dwarf. So again, that's where the automatons come into play. And once you've got that going, and you can even do that if you're making enough treasures. You can sack 5 treasures, go grab an automaton directly, keep making more treasures, And then eventually, if you get Clock of Omens or your combo pieces, you can win from there. And then meanwhile, kind of being able to include some disruptive elements like Soul Guide Lantern and Spine and things like that. So yeah, it's a fairly straightforward deck that's kind of like it's powerful. It can be powerful, but can also be easily shut down by just removing Magda, or destroying artifacts, and things like that. Um, or collector oof, as we've noted. So yeah, so that's kind of the strategy of the deck. It's fairly linear. Like you have a very focused goal. So if you like comboing and you like doing that and winning very fast, that this is probably the best way to do that in Commander, I would say. Just because if you want to go like 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, win. you know, I'm not sure how fast. I don't think they've even explained how fast or like what's the optimal draw for like a win con. Um, but I would imagine that again, once you hit those 5 treasures, it's going to be pretty easy to win from there, especially if you're finding your things fairly quickly. Again, maybe that math changes with Dockside Extortionist depending on the board or what people are playing. But so aside from that, let's talk about, first of all, again, I always want to mention that whether or not you should be playing this, just in your play groups, because that's always a consideration when thinking about what decks you want to play and what decks you want to build. Also, by the way, just gonna point this out down here. So probably if you're new to Commander, don't want to play this anyways. It's a lot of money to be spending on a deck. But that being said, if you are looking to be like, I want to, get into cEDH, I want to play, a really, really powerful deck, this is definitely a really cool deck. I like that it is a mono red deck that doesn't just feel like it's just, playing dudes and smacking or casting, burn spells or whatever. It kind of feels like it's got its own identity. So that's pretty cool. As for I think it's got good protection against, got the Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast, so it can definitely win against a lot of interaction. Um, and it's got a lot of ways of winning too. So yeah, I think this deck, like I wouldn't even know what I would put. I think they've talked a little bit about some exclusions that they've made, and honestly, I think they've really got it. Quicksmith Genius would be kind of a cool one in my opinion. Gadrak, I don't really care. Terror of the Peaks is like whatever. Yeah, like all these cards or whatever. So I think they've built this really great. I'm not sure if there are any newer cards that are out, or maybe cards that are coming out soon, maybe that might add to this. But I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10. I think it's just incredibly powerful and also just interesting. It's been like Clock of Omens is not a card that I like really think of often, but it is definitely a powerful card. So and I obviously I know like how it works. That this is a common combo piece. The one thing I will say is I really would like this card to be gone. just from Commander in general. That's the one thing that I'm just like, oh man, I'm gonna continue to harp on the card just because I'm annoyed by it. And here's a little bit more interesting because we're winning in a more creative way, I guess. But all right, I think that's all I wanted to say about this. Yeah, thank you to Professor Amateur for sending me this. Thank you to Ira Rule. That's how I'm gonna pronounce it. Um, and yeah, again, this is from the Commander, the competitive cEDH deck database. So I'll link that to you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. And if you guys want to submit a deck list, remember you can do so in the comments, or if you really, really want to give me some lists, you can join my Discord, and we have a section just for Commander deck list submissions. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys for the next video.